What's up everyone, welcome back to another POV analysis. Today we're finally going to have a look at HeRoMaRinE, aka Big Gabe. Definitely one of the most consistent Terrans we've ever had in Europe. Been playing at the top level now for like 3 or 4 years, I would say. And recently I feel like he's even stepped it up a little bit more. When I think about HeRoMaRinE, I used to think he was always just like a standard player, not doing any crazy builds. But recently I feel like he's changed a bit. He's done a lot of cool builds as well, different builds, using mind games in series, and I really feel like it stepped up his game a whole level. And now he's finally worth it to be on the YouTube channel. Sounds a bit arrogant, didn't mean it that way. Anyway, this is HeRoMaRinE against Reynor from the last DreamHack. He played 2 absolute bangers of series against Reynor, which is really cool to see. And he did some builds that I personally didn't really like too much using myself. Like I never found a good way to really use them. Like in this game, he's actually going to go for Battlecruiser into bio, which is super awesome, and he actually made it look good. And I was just wondering, like, you know, how the hell did he make this build look good? So now we're going to have a full game to learn from that. Now, what I expect when I watch a HeRoMaRinE game, like I haven't watched too many of his replays recently, but something I would expect is that he probably wouldn't go crazy. Like he's not like Clem where he would send 5 different squads everywhere. Also probably not like Maru where he stays back all the time. I expect that he's going to play a very standard macro game in general after the opener. Make very little mistakes because like I said, he's super consistent, super solid Terran. So I expect very little mistakes and just, yeah, very clean play. Probably very good decision making as well. I'm not sure yet if he's one of the Terrans on which I can stay on the POV all the time. I'm not sure if he's like spamming a lot, so I guess we'll find out soon. One thing I noticed is that he's not... Yeah, he's spamming a little bit too much already. One thing I noticed is that he didn't SCV scout. I'm starting to feel like I'm the only Terran SCV scouting every game, you know. Because I really dedicated to just SCV scouting every single game. But when I watch like Korean Terrans and now HeRoMaRinE as well, they actually seem to skip the SCV scout a lot. I guess that makes sense because people are not playing pool first as much. But still, it just feels very safe, you know. And it's not that expensive, but I guess maybe I should learn from my superiors and stop SCV scouting every game. That could be a start. You know, bring Thermi back. Road to 9k MMR. Just look at the Reaper control. Slight mistake at the start there. Not the greatest. Kiting is pretty good though. We're gonna rate this a 6.5 out of 10. Obviously, when it comes to Reaper Micro, I'm a little bit judgmental as the Reaper man myself. If he didn't grenade himself, I would have given him an 8 or a 7.5. But this is just going to be a 6.5 out of 10. Now, at the same time, he's just going to play triple CC at the home. Let's see if his POV is safe yet. And like I said, I know he's going to go for a Battlecruiser this game. Yeah, so far none of the timings are weird. He pops down the 3rd CC, then puts down the starport, then the 2nd gas, and then he's going to make Hellions after that. I'm curious if he's going to add like a 3rd gas or something. Like HeRoMaRinE is also one of those guys that will have very sharp builds, well thought out, well calculated. So I definitely think he's a good player to learn builds from. So if he does have any crazy gas timings, then we'll be able to steal it. I think Battlecruiser into bio is actually a build that is good to have, you know, in your arsenal, I guess. But it's sometimes a little bit tough to find the right time to use it, if that makes sense. Because I feel like if your opponent is completely aware you'll go Battlecruiser into bio, they're not going to have a super tough time against it. They can basically just do the standard they always do. They will make a ton of queens. They won't have to commit to making like a Roach Warren for the mech follow-up or anything like that. And then you could be in a little bit of trouble. So now his 3rd CC finishes and then he throws down the 3rd gas. This is already a lot later than like Maru's mech build, right? Because Maru's mech build gets the 3rd gas at like 320, I believe. So this is a solid 35 seconds later. One thing that I can't know for sure, but I do have a suspicion about, is look at this. Reynor played Overlord speed this game, scouting the fusion core. And I'm not sure if HeRoMaRinE was intending to go into mech or not. Because one really big weakness of mech is if they scout you're doing it early and they make a Roach Warren right away, you're kind of in trouble. Like, mech is not that good when your opponent doesn't start with the usual Ling Bane phase. So I think it could also be a very good decision by HeRoMaRinE to just go bio after his fusion core was scouted. But it's kind of hard to tell that for sure. You know, I can read the game. I'm not as good at reading minds though. So let's see what the transition looks like. I think he made 8 Hellions. Yeah, 8 Hellions. into the 3 racks. Obviously a pretty standard way to do it. I think you could, if you play Battlecruiser, even if you go into Bao, you could probably get away making 10 Hellions as well, to be honest. For just a really big run by synced up with the BC. You really sell that you're going mech, but I guess when you play against Overlord speed, there really is nothing to sell. Because this Overlord can easily go in at any time, so can this one. Even if they're low HP. Scouting with Overlords is pretty much always worth it, right? Now that 4th gas is pretty late, considering it's Battlecruiser, I mean, after the E-base. Okay, scans for the creep. This is a move I'm never really sure about, by the way. Because I feel like if you scan the creep, like you can see on the minimap, the queens were already approaching to come back, and the creep tumors are already there again. So if you scan the creep, I'm not sure if it's worth it that early, because it is a meal you're giving away. I'm not sure exactly how many resources a meal is, but I think it's about 200 minerals or a bit less maybe. So that's basically what you're paying to kill creep tumors that are going to be replaced. Now let's see how he handles this multitasking here. 2 more barracks on the way as well. I do want to add that this is a really good map to play Battlecruisers on in general. Just because you have this like enormous airspace behind the main. So you can basically always choose between the main or the natural. Which means for a Zerg to prevent this, they would have to put like 3 queens on each side. Which is a lot of queens, right? And even if you pass the natural, you could also just straight fly to the 3rd. So this is definitely a good map for Battlecruisers in general. Obviously, he's not going to get Yamato, right? With 1 BC, Yamato's probably not worth it. Sometimes I do get this question like, why is Yamato not worth it? Because over the course of the game, you could Yamato 5 queens, and it's more than worth it. Yeah, one thing you have to keep in mind is just the investment of the resources at the time. If you get Yamato right away, you might not be able to start 1-1, which is going to delay all your timings, make all your trades worse, just because so you can kill a few queens over the course of the game, right? That's why getting Yamato is not always an easy decision. Because if you do think about it that way, it only costs X, and I'm going to kill Y with it, and that's way more. So you should always get it, right? But yeah, that's not quite how it works. But I do get why I get this question. I think there's an Overlord entering his main with some Bailings, looking at the minimap. Kind of sucks for him that he just did this at the same timing. Yeah, that's going to be a minus 13 SCVs for him. You know, I feel like in games like these, you can really see how clean HeRoMaRinE is with his builds and stuff. Because if I lose 13 SCVs, like I'm not exaggerating at this point. If I lose 13 SCVs, I feel like I'm done and dusted, you know. If I lose 13 SCVs without doing a big amount of counter damage, I feel like I'm done. And here, HeRoMaRinE managed to deny a lot of creep. He's actually still at 141 supply at 730 after losing 13 SCVs. Upgrades are looking good. And yeah, I do feel like he just has... His macro just has something. You know, it's always sharp. His builds work out well. It's really sick. He's going to take an awesome fight against the queens. This fight is good for 2 reasons. The biggest reason is that he cleared so much of the creep. So there was actually no creep there to support the Ling Bane. The second one is that Reynor's Bailing speed was pretty late. And Bailings without speed are... I mean, here they actually got a lot done. But Bailings without speed generally are like legit 3 times worse than Bailings with speed. It's a pretty massive difference. Now, I'm curious what happened to the Battlecruiser. He did teleport it home. Good reaction speed there. Yeah, and this is fun to see because if you watch HeRoMaRinE play from like a tournament perspective, he doesn't like feel fast per se. But if you look at this, he is definitely very efficient. Like nowhere where he looked anything was a disaster. He pulled a 3rd away at the right time. He didn't always look at the defense, but he still got out of it in a really good spot, defending things like just well enough. Microing his main army just, you know, just good enough. And it definitely feels very efficient, the way he spends his attention and his APM here. One thing I'm surprised about is that he didn't make a turret in his main to, like, deter the Overlord from coming in again once it loaded up some Bailings here. I feel like... sometimes it's kind of hard if people intend to do that, because obviously he's distracted with everything that's going on, right? So it's kind of hard to tell if it's an oversight or if he thinks it's not worth it. I do think he's playing a lot more aggressive than I expected, though. Like, he's really just going ham. He's rallying a lot of units over the map. And now he's making a turret. Did he just make the turret I told him to make? Oh, he did. I didn't even notice that. That's really nice. So that is definitely a turret you want to make then. Learning from Big Gabe, guys, as we speak. What's the APM on this, by the way? 350 average. Very respectable for a Terran, for sure. Hey, the Battlecruiser is still alive. How many kills is on this bad boy? 14 kills? Okay, I mean, nothing crazy, but still pretty awesome. Actually, killing the queen here is kind of cool, because then the Marine can stay. Too bad there's more queens on the way already, though. His reactions against the bailing run-bys have been really good, by the way. I think he let the first one in, like the bailing drop. But besides that, he's actually reacted to them all very fast. And he's always finding a way to do counter damage. Like, even when I'm looking on his POV for the most part, I didn't even really notice that he sent an army to the top at the same time. Like, at this point, he is kind of everywhere. If you would take over the game here, like in the last minute you've been watching, it does kind of feel a little bit like a Clem game, right? Always the attack on the top and the right and the BC in the main and the little Marine on the cliff. Like, this was actually a very high pace, high octane game, I should say. 40C, still on 65 SCVs as well. How many workers have been lost this game? 33 against 32. Okay. I'm kind of surprised that with those worker losses, they're on the same worker count. I guess Reynor has been on a lot of pressure, so he wasn't able to create that many workers. But usually when the worker loss count is even, Zerg could probably be ahead by like 25 drones or so. But the pressure has just been insane here by HeRoMaRinE. And I think it's mostly the macro as well as how he syncs up the attacks that's making this work. Because one small criticism I would have is that the micro has not been perfect. Like, sometimes when he was forced to split, he would still tank a lot of bailing hits. But he always has so many units. And the attack on the left always hits at the perfect time, it seems like. Whenever the pressure on the right side is really ramping up for HeRoMaRinE, and Reynor has to send all of his units there, HeRoMaRinE already hits on the left side. And the way he syncs those attacks is really nice. Also, he has a... Yeah, I was about to say. He has a mine in the middle of the map. And that one has actually been helping a lot. Obviously, they don't kill too much when Zerglings are running. But just the fact that he's aware of where the units are all the time. It's very simple things like that, but they really help. Having mines in key positions is awesome. One thing I think you could really use against Reynor is the sensor tower, by the way. I know maybe it's not worth it, because the sensor tower would die to his run-bys a lot of the time. But I don't know, with the amount of gas he has and with the amount of run-bys that are happening, I think a sensor tower at the third would be really, really awesome. Because that was the first time when he didn't react in time. And he was lucky that it was Zerglings, because if those were Bailings, he would have lost all of his SCVs there. Now, he actually got Reynor down to 57 drones somehow. If you get a Zerg down to 57 drones, you know you're doing a good job, guys. If I watch a replay, my opponent's down to 57 drones in the macro game, I'm feeling proud of myself. So if I was Gabe, I would definitely be proud of this. Okay, finally he misses the bailing run by there. But yeah, to be honest, Gabe has already got himself into a really good spot here. When you're 4 base against Zerg, it's almost always good. Obviously, you need to be careful to not lose too many SCVs. He's still remaking them, which is really good. I feel like this is something, you know, a common mistake I see from Terrans, including myself. That when you do lose a lot of SCVs, especially, oh, those mine hits, is when you do lose a lot of SCVs, especially when it feels like you're winning. I feel like you kind of tend to not remake them. You're just like, let's make more units and finish it now, because my eco is kind of in shambles anyway. But he did always remake them to at least 60 SCVs. Because yeah, if you lose 47, or no, if you lose 56 SCVs, and you're still up at 60, that's very respectable. On 4 base, you would ideally have a little bit more. But at this time, I imagine the main and natural will be quite mined out already. Yeah, there's only 10 SCVs mining there. So, like, maybe you'll max need like 70 SCVs here or so. Just making some Liberators as well. This, you know, making Liberators is a simple move. But it's actually very important because in this game, he has 13 medevacs. And I feel like it's very easy. Like, sometimes you just end up with like 18 medevacs. You're sending your units everywhere, trying to hit all your production cycles. And suddenly you have 20 medevacs. Actually realizing that you have a ton of medevacs and making Liberators instead is a pretty good start. Because Liberators are actually very useful, especially if it's not the late game yet. Once you reach the late game and like Vipers are out, it's definitely not the best. But in like those scrappy mid games like this, like just Ling Bane with some queens, the Liberators actually do add a lot of value. Even if the Zerg army can run through them quite comfortably, they do still create somewhat of a no-go zone. Just knowing that your Banelings are going to get sniped one by one. One thing that I consider very important in this game as well is that he has abused dropping into the main a lot in this game. I'm going to explain you why in just a sec after this fight ends. The Zerg, usually they take bases on the right side here. So they will always have to send the units to the right. And you can very easily hop from the 5th base just to the main like that. And HeRoMaRinE has abused this exact pattern so many times already this game. And it almost makes me feel like that's just a staple move of this map. Like, it's just something you have to do on this map. When I play in 2K Atmospheres, I play it similar to him. Like, I feel like the way he's playing it is very, very good. Because on this map, it just works very well to go on the right and the left at the same time. Because the Zerg can't really expand beyond 5 bases that way. Sometimes not even beyond 4. Like, just the way the map works out makes that good. But the drop into the main is like even another step to that. Obviously, that was a really good trade for HeRoMaRinE. One thing that's funny, by the way, when I watch good Terrans, Korean Terrans, and also like HeRoMaRinE, is that the center of their camera is always a bit different from mine. This is kind of hard to explain, and I'm not sure if it's better or not. But if you look at this army, I'm gonna show it to you. So what I notice them do all the time is that they kinda, when they have a big fight, they have the camera like this. So the camera is on their army, and when their opponent's army is in screen, they only see like the edge of it. But when I have the camera, I tend to like look more at what the opponent has. So I can make like better decisions on where to move. But I guess if you do really have them centered, if you see the Banelings come in and stuff, you will have an easier time splitting. Because you don't have to be like me and scroll down first and then split. And yeah, this seems like a very, small detail. But it's definitely something I noticed. That the good Terrans, they do have a different, like, center of camera, I guess, when they fight than I do. And here we go again. The 5th base into the drop in the main. That's legit. Yeah, it almost feels like it's the entire game plan here on this map. There was another map that had this. I think it was Pillars of Gold, where you could attack the 5th and then just hoppa, go into the main. I should try it out as well. It feels so simple, but, stuff like that can even be, the key to winning on a certain map. So he's gonna push with a very awkward army. Wait, let me see how many medevacs he has. Okay, so now he only has 7. This was a very wise move by HeRoMaRinE, by the way. Let me just go back so you can see it again. He burrows all of his Widow Mines. And this is actually super important. He notices that it's gonna be a disaster if he stays. And this is not something everyone would see. I feel like a lot of you would look at this and why? There's just Widow Mine against Mass Lings. This looks fine. There's no medevacs here. Those Marines are very weak. There's too many Widow Mines for how much bio there is. There's no Marauders. So what would happen here is that Reynor would Ling drag just a few of the mines. Either he would hit HeRoMaRinE's army or not and just lose 1 Ling for it. And then he would surround the Marines and they would die. So the fact that he backed up so fast is actually super important. Like, he realized that the fight wasn't going to go well for him in, literally felt like a split second and he was out of there. And it doesn't feel like a huge deal, but he just saved 6-7 Widow Mines by doing that. Which, are very, very, very core in TVZ. TVZ doesn't even exist without Widow Mines, honestly. If you don't have Widow Mines, you don't win in TVZ. So that was actually sick. If you look at the mini-map as well, he actually has an awesome control of the map. Whenever he pushed, he left a few Widow Mines behind. So if you look on the left side, he still has a few Widow Mines. Like, at this point, he must have so many. Oh my, he has 20. I thought he had like 16, 18. He has 26 Widow Mines, guys. 26 fucking Widow Mines. Holy shit, dude. But what I was gonna say is that he has a few leftover Widow Mines at every spot. In the middle, he always put the one. On the left side, he has a few Widow Mines left from the push. And on the right side. So if you look at the minimap, he basically sees every possible unit path that Reynor could move in. There's legitimately only one way for Reynor to move his units around unseen, which is to go here and then like sneak around to the left. That's the only path. And that's super important, guys. If you always know where the units are, you're not going to be surprised by run-bys. At least it's very difficult. So yeah, that's actually sick. And I know I'm making it sound like it's all theory, but this is pretty difficult to do. Pushing a Zerg back that far that you actually deny the creep and you have the map control everywhere, that's actually the hard part. Because yeah, in theory we can all do this. In theory we can all put a Widow Mine in every path, right? But HeRoMaRiNE's actually been able to do so much damage, put out so much pressure, but actually use his advantage. I feel like normally, yeah, when I get into the situations, I will just try to finish the game. I will make so many units and attack everywhere, try to take good trades. But HeRoMaRiNE actually took the perfect map control, set down 5 bases, and now, yeah, he just has this game on lock. One thing I am a little bit surprised by is that he's not making Ghost. And I know he doesn't really need them because he has Libs, Mines, Marauders, and he's doing fine. But I do feel like sometimes it's hard to read what the supply of your opponent is exactly. Like, his opponent has Ultras. If this is a 170 supply Zerg with Ultras, you're not beating that without Ghost most of the time. Like, you could get very lucky with the Widow Mines, especially if you have a lot of Marauders. It would be okay. But in general here, with 8 Marauders, 39 Marines, you would not beat 170 supply Zerg with Ultras. So I am kind of surprised that he's not throwing down a Ghost Academy. Instead, he's actually throwing down more barracks. Oh, wait, no, that's actually only his 6, 7, and 8 barracks. That's actually kind of crazy. He never added his additional barracks this entire game. Because of the you know, the scrappiness, because they lost so many workers. Oh, man. I did tell you guys I was expecting some really good decision making, and I am definitely seeing it. I think being able to realize when you just lost a few too many SCVs to even add, like, some production, like a few barracks here and there, is big. Because usually, I think we kind of all know that if you're like a bit down in SCVs, even it could be something early game, you lose some workers to a Ling run by, you lose some workers to DTs, you still try to add the same amount of barracks, sometimes you just can't produce. And to me it's sick that he spent his money so well despite only having 5 barracks because he just read it so well. Alright, yeah, well that was pretty awesome. That was the first POV analysis I did with Big Gabe. I'll probably do some more because I do think his play is just sick these days. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Make sure to leave a sub and like if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys for the next video. Adios.